Hey, it's Max from UNFTR for the MeidasTouch Network, and I'm here because, there are no late-night hosting gigs available.
Breaking news, CBS is canceling The Late Show with Stephen Colbert.
It's a pretty strange announcement, yeah? I wonder why CBS would end such a storied franchise after all of these years. I mean, according to the statement that they released, it was, quote, purely a financial decision against a challenging backdrop in late night. And the CEO of Paramount even made sure to say that, quote, it's not related in any way, to the show's performance, content, or other matters happening at Paramount. And that's a relief because, for a second there, some people were speculating that it had something to do with Colbert's monologue saying that Paramount's payout to Trump over the 60 Minutes lawsuit amounted to a, quote, big fat bribe. You see, Paramount's in discussions to merge with a company called Skydance, and they need Trump's FCC to approve the merger. Now, Colbert even said in that same monologue that people in the media were already writing about how Colbert himself might potentially be silenced as the result of the merger when Skydance becomes even more obsequious to Trump. So obviously, it's curious timing considering that he gave that monologue and then they announced a couple days later that they're not just canceling Colbert, they're getting rid of the whole late night program that's been around for like 35 years. I'm sure they're not related though, right? So, end of story. Yeah, except that something doesn't quite feel right. Know what I mean? So why don't we dig into it? So unfortunately for Paramount, they actually have to release financial data often. And fortunately for us, they did so at the end of last quarter, as public companies are required to do. And look, I'm sure it's nothing more than a financial decision like they said. I mean, corporate liars don't just say one thing when they mean another. They don't make superficial pronouncements, then doth protest too much when they take us off the scent by saying something like, it's not for financial reasons, and it's not because of content. The content was great. I mean, that would be like saying that the Epstein files should be released and that they're on my desk right now, and then saying there's no list, Biden made it up. That would be nuts. And wrong, just very wrong. No, look, I'm sure the math all works out. So why don't we just take a look? So what you see here is the total picture for Paramount. It's the parent company for CBS that airs The Late Show with Colbert. And you can see that it has three major business units. You've got the TV unit, the direct-to-consumer unit, and the filmed entertainment division. So these numbers are in millions, so that the top line figure is $7 billion in revenue, broken down by $4.5 billion in TV dollars, $2 billion in direct-to-consumer, and $627 million in filmed entertainment. So another unfortunate thing for Paramount is that I know how to read a financial statement. So before we drill down to show you how BS this announcement was, a couple of notes. Earnings are down for the whole company from the same quarter last year because they had the Super Bowl. So it looks like their numbers are down from last year, which is undoubtedly the argument that they're going to make. But they have an auditor's note very clear and present in the financials, making sure to clarify that their revenue is actually up by 2% year over year if you exclude the Super Bowl. So all units are pulling in revenue. And from what the press release says, one can only assume that the TV unit is dragging them down, right? So they reported $688 million in operating income before depreciation, amortization, interest, and reserving for taxes and stuff like that. And I won't make your eyes bleed, but when you go into the detailed financials in the release, it shows that the true earnings after interest expense and other non-operational losses is around $334 million. It's not too shabby, but hang on. That's actually a pretty significant cut into operating income, right? I mean, operating income, top line, right, is $600 million. So revenue less expenses, they make $600 million. But when they go to the actual earnings, it's down to $334 million. Well, that's because they had a quarterly interest payment of $217 million. You heard that right. Hold that thought. Now, let's drill into the business units quickly before we make a couple of educated guesses as to what's really going on here. This is where the Paramount streaming services are struggling to get off the ground. The major brands tucked under this division are Paramount Plus, BET Plus, and Pluto TV. What's Pluto TV, you might ask? I have no idea. No, I mean, I'm asking because I literally have no idea what that is. Anywho, so we're looking for profits here, and nope. Even Yellowstone couldn't turn this unit around as it lost $109 million in a single quarter. Man, that's like Truth Social level bad. Okay, so clearly it's not here, so let's check the next one. Next up, we have filmed entertainment, and who doesn't love a good Paramount movie, am I right? So let's check the numbers. All right, so there's our $627 million in revenue. There was advertising money, theatrical release dough, licensing, and the unit made $20 million for the quarter. So that's a net of $20 million here, a loss of $109 million in the other business unit, and only one business unit to go. Oh, so wait a minute. So if the film unit is barely making any money and the streaming services are hemorrhaging cash, well, then that means, yeah, you guessed it, welcome to Paramount's cash cow. Yep, there you have it in black and white and circled in red. $922 million for the quarter brought in from advertising, subscription, and licensing, netting them $922 million, almost $1 billion for the quarter. And over there on the right side is one of the things that they literally just touted as being number one. Now, by the way, Colbert's Late Show was the highest rated in late night for 7 straight seasons, and it just reclaimed the mantle again this year. It has a daily viewership of around 2.4 million people, which is way ahead of the others in the same time slot. Now, Gutfeld on Fox has higher numbers, but he's a full hour and a half earlier. And Colbert also has 10 million YouTube subscribers, so it also makes money in the aftermarket online and on social media as well. So clearly speculation abounds that they got rid of Colbert just to please Trump and to get ahead of it so that his FCC greenlights the transaction, and it is very curious timing to say the least. But it's the rationale that really pisses me off. So remember that thought that I told you to hold? Here's the thing. The deal itself with Skydance is valued at around $8 billion, but it stands to create a combined value of $28 billion. And one of the reasons that Paramount is so eager to make this deal is because it's saddled with debt. Even by Wall Street's worst standards, Paramount's long-term debt to earnings and debt to asset ratios are garbage. They need this merger. The shareholders really need this merger. So one of the first things that Skydance is purportedly going to do is shed poor performing assets like BET+, but they've also agreed to use some of its cash to pay down debt. See, Paramount's books are a nightmare. But the last thing you do is kill a cash cow heading into a deal like this. And by all metrics, The Late Show has been exactly that. Now, do late night shows bring in as much money as they used to? Not even close. Are they money burners and loss leaders for the networks? Not at all. But to take the leader among leaders out of the mix altogether is borderline reckless. Because remember, we're not talking about the late slots that really fumble for an audience and revenue, but you're talking about the highest rated among peers by a long shot. It's also a brand name that they've really heavily invested in. And there's tremendous crossover between one of Paramount's other booming shows as well, The Daily Show, where Colbert first became a nationally known figure. Now, they could put everything to bed pretty quickly by breaking out their financials, which they do not do. In fact, none of the networks do that to show you which show makes money and which doesn't. Just show us that number for, the primetime slot that's been on top since inception and has crossover revenue coming from other platforms and say it isn't profitable and case closed. But to show that it's a valued part of your suite of number one shows in your only business unit that's successful in your earnings report, just to turn around 2 months later and say it's a loser and we're getting rid of the guy who literally just criticized you 2 days prior to cancellation and was absolutely shocked with the rest of the country, not a good look. Now, when the dust settles, here's the part that I think we really need to pay attention to. There's something called a chilling effect on speech. And it's used mostly in the legal realm to describe a circumstance where free speech is abridged. And it's a pretty high bar to prove, and I'm sure the legal AF crew on Meidas can do a much better job of breaking that down. But it's important to know that a private company can do pretty much whatever it wants. So that's why when so-called free speech maven Elon Musk shuts off an X account when someone criticizes him or another platform shadow bans marginalized voices, it's technically not a violation because it's on a private platform. So when a CEO decides to silence a voice on a network citing financial reasons, it's not a violation of free speech. You have a right to state your opinion in theory in a public square without threat of retribution to the government, but therein lies the problem in our increasingly privatized and corporate public-private square. The lines are very blurry. Now, people want to cry out about cancel culture, but that's not a thing. But when a high-profile and speciously timed event like canceling a television program on the heels of being criticized at a moment when the U.S. Congress just moved to eliminate funding already allocated to public broadcasting, when we're in that moment where dissenting voices over foreign entanglements can be disappeared from the streets over op-eds or just attending rallies, that's when lines, they're not just blurry, they get crossed. And I don't really care about Paramount. I don't even care about Stephen Colbert or any corporate enterprise for that matter, to the extent that these voices exist to primarily entertain, and they're subject to the whims of corporate masters. This is the system we've chosen, but I care very much about the chilling effect in society writ large when those who express dissenting opinions to governments exhibiting cruelty to its citizens are targeted by that same government. See, firing Colbert, that'll get headlines, and rightfully so. But let's keep our eyes on the prize, because this singular corporate action exists along the same spectrum of chilled speech. It's the generous end of it, but there's another end of it as well. One where your neighbor or your coworker might be disappeared, detained, or deported just for speaking out against those in power. This is the slippery slope that people talk about, but I would ask you to acknowledge the top of the hill where the headline-grabbing corporate actions like Paramount canceling Colbert exists, but really look further down the hill to the bottom of that slippery slope, where so many whistleblowers and dissenting voices have already been silenced in ways that we haven't seen in this country since we erected internment camps or built black sites in client states, and even some on U.S. soil. Paramount's actions are disgustingly transparent, yet totally protected. And it's okay to be outraged, just make sure that you channel that outrage into areas of our society with fewer protections than late-night hosts with golden parachutes, because that's where the action is. For the MeidasTouch Network, I'm Max from UNFTR, and you can find me at UNFTR on YouTube or visit our website at unftr.com to sign up for our free weekly newsletter, read our original essays, and download progressive resources to help you stay one step ahead in this fight. See you next time.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.